Hello. Here with some of the kittens, as always, right? Well, they're not really kittens. All of my cats are, let's see, at least 3 years old. Um, let's see, the last litter that was born here, that was when I was still working at Taylor Morrison. So they were born, I think, March 2023. So yeah, 3 years old now. Um, wasn't planning on opening with that, but it is what it is, right? This is unscripted. This live, I've I knew today I was going live, like I could feel it in my bones, right? One, because it's Wednesday, and I have every intention of going live on Wednesdays, pending my energy, all that jazz. And especially moving into February, my schedule is shifting a little bit, so I haven't figured out if like this is gonna shift a little bit or what, but stay tuned for that. That doesn't matter, like you don't need to know, right? Um, I was doing some work earlier today and I'm setting up some new systems, some new structures. I'm wrapping up final assessments with something. I'm pretty sure I talked about that last week, maybe. I don't know. What is time, right? Everything kind of jumbles together. Um, I might end up referencing that again today. No, I referenced it before on the Sunday when I read from my sister's book. Okay. Anyway, um, so I've been working on things. I'm submitting an application to be included in something as well. Won't go into that. That's a me thing. That's a personal thing. Once it comes out, like assuming I get in, right? Like positivity, optimism, all that jazz, then I'll let you know. Because I'm sure I'll talk about it more at that point. But point being, I've been kind of sitting thinking, okay, what am I going to talk about today? Like, what's on my mind? Well, first of all, a lot of things are on my mind. But I wanted this live to be somewhat intentional, right? Because I'm I'm teaching a class in February on the Venus sequence from the Gene Keys. So I want to kind of weave that in, and I'm sure that I will today, just kind of like to get your interest going, right? Like to spark some new ideas, help you make some new connections, but without actually diving into like all of the nitty gritty details. Because if I do that here, what incentive is there for you to join me live for the class, right? But just as a plug, it's on February 14th, Valentine's Day, right? So be my Valentine. 11:30 to about 1:30 Eastern time on Zoom. We're going to be going over the Venus sequence, how I use that, how you can use it, getting into it, all the things. Um, More of a teaching versus like when I come on here and I just like naturally start weaving things in and then adding in my side notes, right? But anyway, I'm not charging what I at one point thought that I would be charging for master classes, right? Because when you look at people who teach to this, who lead classes, master classes, whether it's on the Gene Keys, human design, like anything, right? Like pick your favorite Instagram person who runs master classes and like you know what I mean, right? And if you don't, you don't. But generally speaking, I would say master classes run anywhere from like $30 to $50. And part of me was like, okay, I could do that, right? But part of me is like, you know what? I just want you guys to have this information. But also, I have 15 animals in my house. Like, I run an animal sanctuary out of my home. And I don't yet have the GoFundMe up and running. That's coming. So, plugging that, stay tuned, right? But donations are welcome, right? To cover costs of food, renovations, and also I'm looking to expand into a different space that will be open at large to the community, for the community. I'll touch probably on that a little bit later. I mean, maybe I will now. I don't know. Lives on the Revolution are going to be a lot less structured than like classes, right? Because classes, I'm going to have points, right? For example, just as like a little plug-in, I'm going to be speaking at a human design experience, which is a conference happening in Miami in April. If you're going to that, I'm going to be a lot more structured than I am here, right? But anyway, I digress. I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, right? And in my mind, I'm like, Emily, weave in things about the sanctuary and how you got to where you are now. But then there was a voice in the back of my mind that's like, but I've already talked about that. Like I did on a live back in December when I was in my office. I think I talked for like 40 some odd minutes. 43 is popping into my head. It might have actually been that, but that might have also been because the last live was an hour and 43 minutes. And in my latest newsletter to people on the list, which is different than the Revolution, the list you get like the behind the scenes and some exclusive details. I got sidetracked in my mind. Where was I going with this? Newsletter? Crap. I hate it when this happens. Oh yeah, 43. It's my MC placement. So my midheaven placement. If you understand astrology, you'll know what that means. I use that and I look at it through my human design and my gene keys. So gene key or gate 43 is my MC placement. That's been really fun to work with. It's a Scorpio, so if you know, you know. Anyway, I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today. And part of this, right, is like I'm figuring out how I want to show up in different spaces. And the Revolution, I've got so many ideas for it. But at the end of the day, it's all about my revolution. Like it's starting with me. And there's a voice in the back of my mind that's like, Emily, you're being so egotistic. You're being so selfish to have focus on your Substack being all about you. And it's not just all about me, right? But it's like, it's starting with me and my experiences. And it's interesting, right? Because I sat in on a call yesterday and people were talking about the revolution and not the revolution my Substack, obviously. Like there's a lot of different revolutions. But they were talking about how like it starts with a revolution of the mind and mindset, right? Which just kind of ties into this, right? Like everything starts with you. I won't go into that right now. Maybe later. But anyway, point. I was thinking about talking about how I got to where I am regarding the sanctuary. But I was like, I already talked about that a bit last month as I was cleaning paintings. So I'm not sure if I wanted to talk about that today, but maybe I will. There's a lot of stories with that. And I had every intention of kind of literally like going down the line of like, okay, people want to know me, right? Like, what is Emily's story? Internet connection is unstable. What's happening? Let me try to fix this. See. I'll watch this back and the video will be complete crap. We're just gonna go with it and see what happens. But anyway, point being, what was the point? Now I got sidetracked. Oh, Emily, what's your story, right? Where'd you come from? Sometimes I don't know. I've mentioned before, I dissociated a lot in childhood. And like, there's part of me that's like, Emily, you are, what's the word? You're an unreliable narrator of your own story, which is fascinating, right? Because things shift a little bit in terms of like what I remember, but also like as I'm starting to have conversations and as I'm starting to actually go back and work through my own Venus sequence, because the Venus sequence, I've mentioned it before, but the different spheres are affiliated with different stages of development, like childhood development, psychological development. So a lot of times when I'm working with them, both with myself and then with people that I support and I guide, um, like if I'm feeling stuck with something, right? If I'm feeling triggered, if that core wound has been poked at, right? I will, in my mind, be like, okay, where do you feel rejected? Where do you feel abandoned? What feels crunchy? What do you need to maybe dive a little bit deeper into, right? How old were you during that time period? What gene key is affiliated with it? Which gate is affiliated with it, right? For example, and then I dive into a lot of other things. But for example, I'm sitting here with my high school yearbooks, okay? So I entered high school my freshman year, I was 14. 14 is part of the sphere of EQ, which is developed between 7 and 15. And then 15 to 21 is IQ. So, like, freshman year was right on that edge. And then sophomore year onwards shifts into IQ. So, for 1 year in high school, I was playing with Gene Key 3.3. Gate 3 is in the sacral center. It is my only sacral gate. I don't have the sacral center defined. So it's like, it's really interesting for me to look at that, right? Because it's like, okay, what conditioning do I have around that? What was I moving through between the ages of 7 and 15? Like, fascinating, right? At least to me. You might be watching this and be like, no, this is boring. But hey, you're watching it. So enjoy the show, right? Um, but then from sophomore year onwards, ooh, I'll come back to that. Put a pin in it. I moved into the IQ, which was, why do you guys always play with that when I'm going live? Maybe I should move it. Okay, hold on, because this is gonna bug me. Oops. Let me show you what it is. It's this thing. So the cats love playing with it, but I'm like, okay, I get easily distracted. And I'm like, if I'm going live and I'm on a call, this is also side note, when you have a one-to-one with me or when I'm teaching classes, I'm in my office. Like, the distractions are not here. But this is the sanctuary. There's a lot of animals here. So a day in the life of a crazy childless cat lady, right? But anyway, so I was 15 when I entered sophomore year, which means that for the rest of high school, I was developing my sphere of IQ, which is 45.3. 45 is in the throat center, right? Let me verify that just to make sure, right? Yep. 45 throat gate pointing to the ego. My throat is defined. So that's an interesting layer to look at things through as well. But anyway, I was thinking earlier, what am I going to talk about today? And in my mind, I had every intention of kind of guiding you through my journey and how I got to where I am now with the sanctuary. And I've touched on that before, like I said. Side note, part of me feels very insecure around the fact that I recycle things a lot. I come back to stories, I come back and I repeat things a lot. I was shamed for that a lot when I was younger. And so I took that into myself, right? And I started to judge myself for it. But if you look at my human design, one of the two channels that I have is 6124. It's the head Ajna gate right in the center. So it's an individualistic channel as well. I'm constantly thinking and I'm constantly like turning ideas and concepts over in my mind, meaning I come back to stories a lot. I refine things, right? It's almost like think of a stone. Part of me is like a river rock. Side note, River Rock Cafe in St. Peter, Minnesota. I don't know what they're affiliated with, like politically. I'm very cognizant of businesses, and even though I understand that businesses may not be affiliated with politics, like the people running them are. So I'm curious, right? I'm very aware of that before I enter into a partnership with people. Um, I'll get into that more at a later time. But anyway, um, it's like river rock, right? Like it starts all jagged, but as the water kind of goes over it, erosion, like whatever scientific word is meant to be there. Like this is not my area of expertise. I apologize. Um, it smooths things out, right? So it's like I have to do that with my stories, which is why if you follow my lives, if you watch these replays, you're gonna hear me talking about things again and again, just in different ways. Like I'm gonna repeat my stories, but every time that I do, it's like I'm coming at it from a different angle after having kind of gone through things and looked at it from a different way and a different perspective. So it's gonna shift. That just makes me think of like, because my head and my ajna is defined, right? Like I have a firm way of thinking about things. Like the way that I think about things doesn't change. However, sphere of IQ, right? The line 3 represents having a flexible mind. I take information and I refine things, which is interesting because a lot of times people like shame leaders for changing their minds. And I'm like, imagine if we shamed all of the people who voted for Trump for changing their minds and realizing, oh, that probably wasn't the best idea, right? And let me be clear here, okay? Because I know a lot of people are going to be like, they've done it before. You didn't vote for Trump. You must have voted for Kamala. No, I did not. I voted for Jill Stein and Butch Ware. Sorry, Butch. Part of me's like, you butchered his name. But I don't get it. Butchered. I find that funny. Anyway, I voted third party. Like I am an independent fill in the blank, right? Um, but yeah, we're not getting into that right now. That's not the point of this. Imagine if we shamed people for changing their minds around that, right? For they were so far into the program, right? They were following orders, but now people are waking up. Imagine if we shamed them for that. Like to me, shame is one of the core wounds, okay? Sweetheart, don't bump this, please. Um, and I understand, right? Like sometimes people need to be shamed, but also if people hold themselves accountable, right? If they recognize their mistakes, if they apologize for that, and if they take the steps that need to be taken to correct themselves and I mean, just, I don't know what word I want to use here, but you know, like we are so divided right now. And I'm just kind of sitting here, right? Thinking, okay, we don't need more division. We need unity. And we're not going to achieve that if we continue to push people away. So, how do we hold people accountable in such a way that also encourages them to come forward, right? To speak up, to speak out, to not remain silent, to use their voice for the people, right? I don't know, just an idea. Anyway, as always, there's a voice in the back of my mind that's like, Emily, this is so chaotic. I am my worst or best troll, like full stop. Um, and I've mentioned that before. But anyway, okay, let's get somewhat back on track, right? I was thinking earlier about, okay, maybe I share my journey with college, right? Tying it into family history. But then the other part of me has been like, but you touched on that before, right? But also talking about these things, one, it not only helps me get a clear idea of like where I've been and where I'm going, but it also, if you're paying attention, right? If you're connecting the dots, it helps you do the same thing too. And what's fascinating to me, right? Self-projected projector, right? When I speak, when I share my voice, whether that's actually speaking or if it's through my writing, like I reflect on myself, which helps me guide myself, but also when I have trusted people reflect on me, it gives me a different perspective. So it's like some of my friends, right? They'll listen to my stories and then they'll point out things that they noticed that I was completely unaware of. And that's like game changing for me. Um and it's funny because one of the things that I've been kind of insecure about, right? Especially with like going live and the revolution is there's a part of me that so desperately wants to come on here and have like a bullet point list of things that I'm going to talk about. And maybe I should have done that today, right? But the other part of me is like, at least for right now, these lives are very much for me. Like they're for you as well. I'm like off center and that's kind of like bugging me a little bit. Um, but it's like, it's for you as well because I recognize that I can be difficult to get to know. Um, I don't talk a lot unless I have the invitation to do so. And like, I have the invitation right now. It's my platform, right? I can speak for as long as I want to about whatever the hell I want to talk about. But it's funny because, like, was it last year? No, the year before. Um, what is time? And honestly, like, this 2025, I don't know about you, but it like, I feel like at times I'm still in 2024. Like, where did the time go? I don't know. But anyway, I told somebody once that I know I don't say much, but also part of that's because, like, if I don't feel like I'm actually invited to speak, I'm not going to speak. If I don't feel like my perspective is truly welcome or that, like, you're really wanting to listen to me, or if I'm unsure about that, like, I'm going to be not censored, but selective, right? With what I share with whom, X, Y, and Z. Anyway, I know that I can be difficult to get to know. It's funny because with the high school yearbooks around me, right? I remember at one point somebody that I went to high school with, I forget if they told me this in high school or if it was afterwards, but they made a comment to me once. One, I know that I have resting bitch face. Like, I'm fully aware of that. But they made a comment that, like, they, I can't quote them. I don't remember what it was, but the general gist of it was something along the lines of the fact that, like, they didn't think I knew they existed, I think. Because, like, I'm the type of person, right? I'm in my bubble. Like, if I'm not invited in, if people don't want me, like, that's fine. I stay in my lane, right? And, like, I remember in high school and also, like, now, like, when I'm at the gym, for example, I'm walking through that. I'm not I don't pay attention to, like, other people. I notice them. I notice and I clock them. I take notes. But for the most part, I'm focused on what I'm focused on, right? Um, sorry, I feel like I hear a cat growling. It happens sometimes. um, and it's so funny because, like, I am very aware of the fact that I have a certain presence. Um, I went to Chicago for the first time in September of 2024. That's a story that I'm going to be sharing soon. Like, that will be a live that is intentional. I have a specific date in mind for that. I want it to be on a Monday for reasons. Or actually, you know what? Maybe it'll be this Sunday I'll go live and I'll share that and then I'll post it on Monday because there's something about Monday, right? If you know, you know. But anyway, um, I met somebody there. He's a piece of work. Um, who made a comment that I give off, like, what's her name? Sarah something rather, the person from I'll Be Back with what's his face. I literally, why am I blanking on this? Terminator. That's it. Like, I give those vibes off. And that's interesting because part of me is like, some of my ancestors, rumor has it anyway, I'm like, my grandpa told me this. I remember that. He also told me that, like, my great 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 grandpa or somebody, like, came to America on a hot air balloon, and I'm like, what? Okay, that's fascinating. Um, but some of my ancestors come from Russia, right? And, like, I am, I'm a white mutt basically. So English, Irish, Scottish, German, Russian, for sure. I did a very brief look at ancestry.com and I saw that somebody on my mom's side lived in and was born in France during the French Revolution. And I'm like, what? So part of me needs to do a deep dive into that because that's fascinating. I could see my eyes light up with that. I'm like, oh my God, that would be so much fun. Anyway, um, yeah, so it's like, it's the Nordic. I mean, I see the bone structure, right? Like, I've got a very hard edge, but I'm also like a soft, gooey center. I'm a Cancer, for God's sakes. Like, Cancer Sun, Jupiter, Mercury, Chiron, descendant, and I think that's it. Um, but anyway, point being, bring it back. How was I tying this into the yearbooks? Oh yeah. Um, I know that I can be kind of intimidating sometimes, which is funny because for the vast majority of my life, I have not felt like that. I'm like, look at me. I'm a fucking goofball. Like, what do you mean I'm intimidating? But then at the same time, I'm like, I'm very aware of how I can flip that switch and go from like, we're joking to like, sir, sit the fuck down, right? I know I can do that. Anyway, so bringing it back, right, to my train of thought before starting this live, part of me is like, keep an eye on the timing, Emily, because you don't necessarily want to be talking for 2 hours like you did last week. But also, who cares? Like, if you want to watch it, you're gonna watch it, and if not, you're not gonna. Like, I'm gonna rewatch it because I think that I'm hilarious. But anyway, I was thinking about kind of following my journey with education, right? I've talked about how in my immediate family, I am, and I'm going to be referencing this a lot over the years. I'm the only one in my immediate family that doesn't have a formal graduate degree. There's some interesting wounding around that, right? And part of me is like, maybe I do talk about that. And also, sorry, Mo just sat down and he's my fluffy cat. There's actually two. And there's like fur flying around in my face right now, and I can feel it on my nose. So it's like, that's annoying. Um, but then I looked at my yearbooks and I'm like, oh, but I could talk about high school, which could be interesting, right? Hmm. Okay. Well, let's start here just because, right? Color Me Scarlet with the red lips. I love that. This was from 2005. There's 2006, 7, 8. Okay. Let's talk about high school. We'll come back to college and like grad school and all that jazz. I think I've mentioned, let me just kind of like note it here just because I feel like it. Um, and I've mentioned it before, so this may not be news to you. I've gotten into and entered into two different grad programs. The first was a PhD program at the University of Buffalo in New York. Um, if I had completed that, I started when I was 22. I only stayed in for one semester before dropping out and moving to Florida. Um, my PhD would have been in transnational gender studies. And then in 2023, I started a program at the University of Florida. I dropped out after 2 semesters because I realized like that wasn't the way I could feel it wasn't right for me. I went into that program because I wanted to open up an animal sanctuary, right? And I was like, well, I need to know how to do all of this stuff, so I might as well get the degree to prove that I can. That didn't work. Not the proving thing, just like I love animals, but like diving into everything that you need to know to run an animal sanctuary, I realized like that's not my forte. I know the basics, I know what I need to know, but when this thing actually gets up and running, like that is where bringing in professionals is gonna come into play, right? But anyway, that degree would have been a master's of science in shelter medicine. Most people in that program were vets, and then there was me, right? I have a bachelor's in psychology with a minor in women's and gender studies. Like I was the black sheep, right? But anyway, let's bring it back to high school. Maybe flip through some yearbooks for a little bit. I opened this one up. This is the one from 2005, okay? Um, which was my freshman year. And the first thing that I opened up to was, you know how people write in yearbooks? I honestly, and I mentioned this in the um the live where it was literally just me going through report cards and yearbooks. And I need to do that more. Honestly, maybe this is what this one's going to turn into. We'll see what stories come up, right? This has probably been like a 30-minute intro to like, let's sit down and go through my yearbooks. But before I do that, right? Just to bring it back a little bit, I've mentioned this before. Fascinating connection. Actually, there's a few interesting connections that I've noted. One, I was born and raised in Minnesota. Born in St. Paul, lived in Eagan, Minnesota for the first 10 years of my life before we moved down to Mankato, Minnesota. From there, I graduated from high school when I was 18, got my bachelor's degree in Winona, Minnesota, and then in 2012, moved to Buffalo, New York for that 6-month stint at the University of Buffalo, which, fun fact, was right on my Pluto line, astrocartography. So there's a part of me that's like, ooh, I wonder if that had something to do with why it didn't work out. Like, I was not ready for the intensity of that transformation. Fascinating. Sorry, there's that hair again. One of the cats is being cute. Anyway, fascinating connections that I see, right? Tim Walls taught at my high school. He did not teach me, he did teach my siblings. He got into politics before he would have been my teacher. Hi, buddy. Look at you. One of the cats, Poe, has issues walking and with his hind legs. So whenever he's playful and moving around a lot, I get really, it just melts my heart. But anyway, Tim Walls taught at my high school, which I think is interesting. Butch Ware, like, not to, I don't know the man, right? He has ties to Minnesota. Jill Stein has ties to Minnesota. I don't know. I just think that's fascinating. Like, connections, right? Anyway, part of me is looking at an entry that somebody wrote, but there's another part of me that's like, bring back talking about Mr. Urban or Mr. Eyrig. I talked about Mr. Urban a couple weeks ago, and that's going to be a story that I dive into writing wise as well. Mr. Eyrig, I have not mentioned on a live before. I've taken a video and I've shared it on, I've shared it undercover. Mr. Eyrig was a social studies teacher at Mankato West. I had him my sophomore year. And I forget exactly how long he taught there. I've got a video when I went to Minnesota last year. I went down to Mankato and I walked through the halls of Mankato West. And he's got his own little like Hall of Fame thing there. So I took a video of it. It's in my phone. I could pull it up. Oh, I might as well. It's gonna take a long time to find it though, because I've got a lot of stuff on here. So you know what? I'll come back and insert it. But basically, he's been at Mankato West for a long time, and he had this thing, right, where he taught U.S. history, and during the sections on World War II, I don't want to say played, but we played a simulation, right, where for however long, part of me wants to say it was like 2 weeks, but it might not have been that long. I honestly don't know. So people from Mankato West, if you remember, like, let me know what you remember from that, right? But it was like a Holocaust simulation. So the people in his class we were living in the Holocaust. I forget, honestly, I forget the details of it. Like if we were all supposed to be Jews or what, but there were select upperclassmen that Mr. Eyrig chose who were like Gestapo. So if they stopped us in the hallways, we had to follow orders, right? And that's something that I've been reflecting on a little bit, not like in detail yet. But what I do remember is there would be other people, right, who would try to play along without permission, take advantage of that, and I'm sure bully people. And there's very much a part of me that's like, witnessing everything that's happening with ICE and all of that. And I'm like, there's a lot in my mind about this. I have a lot to say. Rather than me getting stuck here, though, let me just say, just in case it's not abundantly fucking clear where I stand on this, fuck Trump, fuck ICE, free Palestine. Okay? Fun fact, I had a mentor, the mentor who blocked me, by the way. I think that's a fascinating connection. Who, when I was working with her, it was the latter half of 2024. So like things in Gaza were already happening, right? But people were very much like ostriches, pretending that it wasn't, and that it wasn't a fucking genocide. Which it is. Okay? Let's be very clear on that. Genocide being live streamed. Yeah. I'd been talking to her about like some ideas I had for like posts and like X, Y, and Z, and about how I wanted to make a post and pin it to my Instagram profile that said, fuck Trump, fuck ICE, free Palestine. And I remember her saying, like, are you sure you want to do that? And what's interesting about that, right, is like, on one hand, I'm like, well, maybe she was trying to protect you, right? Because as we all know, as soon as you start vocalizing where you stand politically, especially with things like this, it's like you might lose business. Brands may not want to work with you, or if you're like saying fuck Trump, fuck ICE, free Palestine. I'm going to repeat it as much as I need to for you to get it through your head. Okay? Also, as I've said before, this is not a children's show. Rated E for Emily. I'm going to swear. I've got a mouth like a sailor. Like, I don't know how to steer a pirate ship, but if the shoe fits, right? Fascinating connections with that. Most of you aren't going to make that connection just yet. Probably come somewhere down the road, but it'll come. So part of me, right, was like, well, maybe she was just trying to protect you, right? Because if you spoke out against this, you might lose the opportunity to work with certain businesses and certain brands. But I'm also very much of the mindset that, like, if you support that, and not even if you support it, like, if, especially now, right? Today is January 28th, 2026. If you are not speaking out about this, sweetheart, I don't want to work with you. Okay? Like, what are you doing? There's a voice in the back of my mind that's like, Emily, get off of your soapbox. Like, this is not the time nor the place. We wanted to keep this live light and playful, right? But also, this is me. Like, you're gonna get this playful side of me, Venus and Gemini, right? But also, you're gonna get this. I'm gonna leave that there. Okay. Anything else with that, or can we move along, Emily? Right? Oh, goodness. Okay. Yearbooks. Let's have some fun. So I opened up before I went live to this page, and one of my friends from high school, we had a falling out. I honestly don't remember exactly what happened. Um, I honestly don't. Like, again, I dissociated so much in high school. So a lot of the negative things that happened, I'm like, whoop, we're gonna ignore it, like pretend that it didn't. Um, bury it deep, right? So that's gonna be interesting as I start kind of like bringing them out, what I do and don't remember. But anyway, point being, I opened up this yearbook to a full page letter from a friend from high school who, as I said, like we ended up not being friends at the end of it all. But they did reach out to me recently, and they had cancer. Um, so we're friends on Facebook, and I don't keep up with Facebook very much. I don't keep up with people from high school. Um, but when she found out that she had cancer, it came across my feed, and like I reached out to her, right? Um, and they contacted me last year and sent me a message saying something along the lines of like they apologized and wanted to let me know that they would always support me. And part of me was like, well, thank you. But also what? Like, what? That's also just like as a side note, fun fact to me, right? I think it's fascinating because I'm like, I'm not in touch with people from high school. So when people do reach out to me, I'm like, okay. Like, fascinating. Somebody else sent me a message a few years ago that I only recently saw because again, I'm not on Facebook very much and I very rarely check those messages. So there was a request for a message. Um, and it was a very sweet message. So again, there's a part of me, right, that's like, this is one of the reasons why I'm starting to dive into the things that I dissociated so much from, because I'm like, the stories that I told myself, especially around high school, were very much, and before, right? Like all school stuff was very much nobody likes me. Or like it may not be that, but like people were indifferent to me, right? Like I was a wallflower. I was the type of person who I could fit in anywhere. I could adapt anywhere, but I didn't really have anywhere that I actually like fit really, right? Um and I didn't think that anyone actually noticed me. So like I got that message from this one person. I should like part of me is like, should I find it? Um and it was a very sweet message, but I was just sitting there when I read it and I'm like, I literally did not think that this person knew I existed. So to receive that message and such a like kind message was like, Emily, maybe you need to like rethink the stories that you've been telling yourself, right? Like I've told myself nobody liked me, nobody paid attention to me, like et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, maybe they did. But to bring it back to what I said somewhere earlier in this live, like, maybe they were too fucking intimidated because of your resting bitch face. So they never approached you. And because projector needs the invitation, and I learned not to insert myself into places that I wasn't invited into. Fascinating dynamic, right? Which then just makes me think, like, imagine if people in schools, in high schools, right, knew other people's designs, and this would be like, part of me's like, in what world? And I'm like, in a world that we recreate. Um, but like, imagine if people knew their peers' designs. Like, they would know who needs an invitation. They would know who needs to wait for something to respond to. Like, just all of these things. I'm like, my mind right now is just going like, fascinating. Part of me's like, bring human design and the gene keys, but everything into the mainstream. Calling it in. Snap, snap, motherfucker. Okay. Anyway, so this letter, right? Coming back again. Very, very sweet. From the friend that we ended up not being friends, but like had cancer. We kind of like, I mean, we didn't talk. We didn't smooth things over, but I'm like, it's in the past. Um, this person's a musician, okay? And they wrote, I just want you to know that I want you to be there when I have that great hit, et cetera, et cetera. I will have to send you a ticket to my concert. And I'm like, I'm waiting for that ticket, sweetheart. It's coming. Like, yep. And they also gave me a PS. Now you have my autograph. So part of me is like, ooh, I bet I could sell this for a lot of money one day. How fun would that be? Right? Like, that's also, I don't know. There's a part of me, right, that's like reflecting on high school and everything. And like, I think it's interesting to think about, like, when were in high school, right? Like, who who did you think was going to be like a big name star, or like who was going to be super accomplished in X, Y, or Z? And then like other people where it's like you have this idea that they're not going to go anywhere or whatever. Part of me is like, I wonder what people thought would happen with me, right? I would be super curious actually to know that. Like, so this is an invitation to anybody that went to high school with me. Like, slide into my DMs, comment below. I don't care. Like, I think that would be fascinating. Like, that's a whole different thing. But anyway, I flipped through this just very briefly. Because I was hoping that in this yearbook in particular, I'll check the 2006 one in a second. That they would have pictures of the teachers. Because they did in like my elementary school yearbooks, but there's not one in this one. However, let me see if I can find it. There's a couple of things where I'm like, oh God. Okay, first of all, Teacher Hall of Fame, where students take inventory of their teachers. Um, and side note, I was hoping that there would be a teacher section because I'm like, Tim Walls, right? Like, want to see him in here. But I flipped open, most likely to take over the district. Ted Gullickson, the pedophile. I'm just dropping that there. Now you know what he looked like. Was 52 years old when he was caught with a 18-year-old former student of his. I talked about that in January 7th live, I believe. So you can run back to that one if you want more details. I'm sure I'll come back to this again. But with this one, right? Class of 2008. Oh my God. So I mentioned it in the January 7th live that I know that my childhood pictures are gonna get out at some point. And I'm like, the version of me, right, that is still wounded from that time, that I now have to show a lot of compassion to, looks at that picture and is like, people are gonna make fun of you. And they made fun of me then, like a lot. Like I've said it before, I was an ugly duckling. Yeah. Be careful there, sweetheart. One of the kittens. Well, cats. She's 3. Oakley. Um, I need to like plan for this, right? So I can put post-it notes around other people's faces. But part of me wants to show you what I looked like. But the other part of me is like, I don't know about that. Let's see if can I like I want can I because like I said, I don't want to show other people's faces if I don't need to. But I do think it would be kind of cute. So let's take a picture on my phone. Let's crop out the other people. We're getting creative in the moment here. Well, I don't know if this is creative, but it's so this was me. Hopefully you can actually see it somewhat clearly. It's blurry, but like, aw, that was me. So that was 2004 when that picture was taken, but that was my freshman year. So, yep, didn't know what to do with my hair, just awkward, puberty, all that jazz. Now I'm like, okay, let's go through the yearbooks. Let's find me and these pictures, right? Okay, so that was 2005. It's so fun like flipping through this and being like, oh my God, these people. Oh, let's see, where am I? Case. CASE. Oh, I'm in the wrong year. I'm like, did they cut me out of the yearbook? No, I was just looking at the wrong grade. Okay. Let's see. Case. Ooh. Okay. You get my reactions in the moment to seeing me from these times. Okay. So this was when I learned how to use a straightener. In freshman year, I did not. So that was middle part, no product in my hair. Oh, baby girl. This was me sophomore year. Like you look at my eyes and it's like you can see that I'm so not there. I'm so dissociated. Like that was me. Okay. Junior year. Actually, this was my sophomore year. Refused to be defined. We don't fit into any boxes. Fuck that. And if you are put in a box, it's made of glass. Just break through. Right? Somebody invited me to their wedding. They did not invite me to their wedding. Let's see. So that was probably sorry, now I'm like reading some of the autographs and I'm like, oh boy. Okay. Junior year. Where am I? Am I in the wrong? I am in the wrong year again. They all look the same. Ooh, teachers. Oh no. Mm. Oh, look at that. Mr. Urban in Peach Bush now. Oh gosh. That reminds me. Okay. I've already talked about this. Mr. Urban was my AP Gov teacher. He had a wall in the classroom where if students got a 5 on the AP Gov exam, he had them listed on the wall so you could see all the students from previous years on there. Both of my siblings were on that wall, so they got perfect 5s, and me, being the youngest, the black sheep, the one that was always compared to them and came up short, did not get a 5 on the AP Gov exam. That was traumatic. Also, because I've got this page open, Mr. Sutton was the girls' lacrosse coach. I played lacrosse. Just a fun fact. We played with kilts. So that's going to be an interesting story to dive into at a later time. Yeah, so we wore our uniform was kilts and a jersey, and like we were obviously expected to wear spandex shorts underneath the kilts. There was one player who did not. Um, and I always wonder sometimes, like, I mean, I heard the things that people said, and I wonder how that impacted her, right? Um, Now this year has a thing with all the teachers. Why doesn't the other one? Okay, does 2006 have teachers? Because then I want to see if Mr. Walls is actually in there. Excuse the silence. We're just gonna flip through this real quick. Oh, what was that? Was that the teachers? It is. Mr. Walls, were you in here? Yep, there he was. 2 down from Mr. Urban. So I'm like, there they are. That's interesting. Anyway, okay. What was I looking for in this one? Me. Not to be egotistic, right? Why do I always go to the wrong class? Okay. Class of 2008. There I am. Oh no. Emily, sweetheart. It's okay. I have so much love and compassion for the girl that I was. I'm just also very aware of the fact that, like, I'm gonna be ridiculed for this. I'm sure the trolls are gonna come for me. But again, I've mentioned it before, like, I was protecting myself in the ways that I knew how. And you can tell that I was trying to take care of myself and like fit in, but also you can very much tell that I was not confident in myself at all. So this was me junior year. Like, look at that baby girl. Sweetheart. All right, and then senior year. Forever Scarlet. Memory is a way of holding on to the things you love, the things you are, and the things you never want to lose. Okay. What's this? Spring supplement. I'm just like, side note, right? Me getting distracted. Um, Also, kind of as a side note, one of the things that I think is fascinating, right? I'm not in the yearbooks very much. Um, One, because I wasn't involved in a whole lot of things. I didn't have the time or the energy for it. And also, just like, again, I didn't fit anywhere. I wanted to. Like, there were a lot of clubs. And I said this again, I'm repeating things, but I said this in another live. Like, I wanted to be involved, but I didn't actually feel like I was welcome. But part of me is like, I might need to actually go through these page by page sometime not live just because I'm like, I don't know if you guys want to see me sitting here doing that. Um, Although if you're watching this now, it's like there's something there, right? But oh look, there's Caleb Melby. He's also in the Scarlet Hall of Fame. Some of these pictures, like the future leaders of America. Where are they now? I would love to know. I would love to know who in these pictures are what team they're on, right? Or if they're like me and they're a third party. All that jazz. That's fun. Side note, one of the thing that's really fascinating for me looking through yearbooks is like seeing my high school crushes because none of them liked me back. Um like I just flipped in to a page and there was a significant crush. I liked him for a long time. I made a fool of myself is what I did. Okay, senior picture. So this was when I was 17. Come on, phone. This is my personal phone. It's old, like, and very slow. So this was me senior year. That was after I'd lost some weight. I struggled with binge eating and yo-yo dieting most of my life. This, excuse me, was about the time that I had lost weight. Excuse me, not in a healthy way though. I counted calories to the extreme. Like there were days when I might hit 400 calories. Like it was bad, not healthy at all. Um, Zora, what are you doing? Sorry, one of the dogs. Um, but yeah, I remember working one day. I worked at a nursing home um, as a dietary aide. And I don't remember if I actually fainted at work or if I just got like really freaking woozy, but I ended up needing to go home. They called my mom, who was rightfully concerned, right? And threatened. She was like, either we're going to Arby's and you're gonna eat a roast beef sandwich and curly fries, or I'm bringing you to the hospital and you're getting hooked up to an IV. And I'm like, that was a turning point in terms of like that. Just as like a side note, I'm gonna be diving into my experiences with eating disorders, in writing and lives and things like that. Um, but that was interesting. Um, but yeah, part of me now is like, do I want to show you pictures of me from all of my yearbooks? Like, just go with it, or maybe make that a separate thing. I don't know. I'm kind of stuck on high school right now for a variety of reasons. Just because like there's a lot of stories that I've been telling myself, like I said, around things that happened in high school, and not just like to me, right? Like to others too. And there's very much like I can't help but make the connections, right? And I think about what's happening in Minnesota and people that I went to high school with. And like the people that are starting to speak up, like I'm watching, I see you. Um, and it's fascinating to me anyway, right? Reflecting back on the good old days, which to me were not actually the good old days, but it is what it is. Part of me is like, okay, we need to start wrapping this live up. But there's also part of me that's like, but there's still something that needs to be said. I just am not quite sure what. Hmm. No, you know what? I think I'm gonna leave this here. I think I'm going to come back to it. Ooh, actually, see, I knew something else needed to come up. Side note, Mo is super cute right now. I don't want to like touch the phone because it might fall, but he's just curled up in my lap and he's like this, kind of hanging off of the couch a little bit. You're so cute. Also, he's got like this little beard thing underneath his chin. I'm like, his chinny chin chin. It's just adorable. But anyway, let me find the yearbook. So a couple weeks ago, when I first, there it is. So when I first started going through yearbooks live, I didn't bring this one up. Um, but I saw it before I went live. So during that live, there was part of me that was like, ooh, let's talk about this. That could be fun. But I didn't end up talking about it. And that was a live where it's like it was limited to 1 hour because I started at like, I don't know, 6 or 7 o'clock, and then I had a meeting at 7 or 8 o'clock. Doesn't matter. Like I had a window. Whereas now it's like I have nothing for the rest of the night, so I can talk for as long as I want to. Um the sign that I really need to stop is if like I get notified that the battery's low, right? But anyway, I've I've mentioned before, right? Just to kind of like lay the foundation, backstory. I was raised Catholic. I got baptized when I was a baby. I did not consent to that. I did the first communion thing, and you're like, what, you're 7 when that happens, I think. Like, I think that was second grade ish, which is actually fascinating, right? Because I'm like, connect the dots there. That was right around the time that I stopped playing the piano. Hi, Third Eye. Be nice. And like two of my boys right here. Zora, don't you start. Guys, oh my god. Mo was just like pawing. You couldn't see him. Anyway, I digress. Um, that's interesting. In confirmation, right? Happens around 15. Well, I mean, this was 2006. So yeah, I would have been 15. Um, I refused to be confirmed. Ooh, okay. I'm like, this is where we're going with this one. I've been sitting on this story for a while, and I'm like, when are we going to talk about it? Apparently now, at least a little bit, right? Just in case you're unaware, I'm queer. I've never officially come out. I didn't feel the need to because to me, I don't like labels. I think it's a bunch of shit. Like, who cares? Love is love, right? I pass very easily as straight though. Like I know that. Most people assume that. Um and based on my dating history and the types of individuals that I typically lean towards, like that tracks. But I remember in high school, right? Confirmation. I refused to go through the schooling, like training, whatever. Like, I'm not an expert in this, right? So some people are going to be like, that's not how it works. I don't care. Like, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You can give me the details of how it actually works. But what I remember is you had to go through a series of like weekly trainings to like you go through the Bible study, like you learn all the things, right? And then at the end of it all, you choose your Catholic name. And it's like you place your hand on the Bible, raise your hand, or like, I commit to this life path. I didn't want to. Because in my mind, right, I was like, why the fuck am I going to commit to a religion that does not want me, that judges me, that is homophobic, transphobic? I'm not trans, but like trans people are people, trans rights are human rights, all that jazz. A religion that is misogynistic, right? Like, why? When also all of my experience up until that point had been, like, with religion, had been traumatic. I refused. That caused a lot of issues in my family. Like, I was the first and only one in my family to not get confirmed. Um, in my immediate family, I remember like my brother, apparently he didn't want to get confirmed either. Um, I think I don't know if my sister wanted to. I'm sure like she doesn't identify with that faith anymore. Like she's very, you can look her up. Um, she's done her studies, all that jazz. But like I remember in the moment when I was questioning everything, all that I knew at that time was like Jeff got confirmed, Jenny got confirmed. I am the only one that's refusing not to. And I remember that like my dad at one point, and I think my mom did too, said that, well, Jeff didn't want to get confirmed, but he did it. And when I asked why, my dad said, because it made your mom happy. And like, let me be clear here. This isn't, I'm not shaming my mother here. Like, I'm not blaming her for anything. I'm just pointing out my experience, right? And this ties into like a year or so ago, I texted my mom and I asked her, like, why did you want so badly for me to get confirmed? And her response was something along the lines of, because everybody else did, right? And I knew that, like, me not getting confirmed was a bad reflection on her. Um, and so I had been being told, right, that Emily, just get confirmed. It will make your mother happy. It won't cause any drama in the family. Like, be a good girl and just do it. It doesn't have to mean anything. But to me, right, I'm like, the whole point of confirmation, from my understanding, is that you are choosing to commit to this faith. I did not consent. So why the fuck are you trying to force me, right? That was my mindset. Anyway, I'm going to tie that back into this yearbook in a second. But like, also, what was fascinating about this, right, is this was happening 2005, which was about the time where I was realizing, like, I'd been aware, at least from middle school, that like I thought that girls were pretty. I had a crush on one. She was a dancer. Um and so like I was aware that I wasn't straight. And at the time I'm like, okay, you're probably bi. And I'm like, I'm not a person that adheres to any labels. Like, I'm, if anything, like, you stick a label on me, I'm gonna peel it off and become unlabeled, right? But if you come back to this somewhere down the road, I don't have a poker face, right? Like, I'm dropping seeds, I'm planting seeds, I'm laying, I'm giving out clues. Anyway, I've said that before, right? Um, 2005, so when I was 15, around that time period, when I was fighting in my family to not be confirmed, and I won that battle, it caused, like I said, a lot of issues in my family at the time. And what was interesting too is like by that point when that was happening, I was the only child left in my house. Like it was just both of my siblings were gone. Jeff had moved out to California. He was getting his PhD at UC Santa Barbara, um, PhD in mathematics. Jenny was getting her bachelor's at Winona State University. I ended up going there too. I followed in her footsteps, right? Um, so they were gone and it was just me, my mom, and my dad. And I'm trying to think, I'll have to check with them and then like come back and adjust dates, right? My dad ended up taking a job at as a professor in the Virgin Islands at one point. I feel like that was when I was already in college though, because I spent spring break down there one year. So I think high school, they were both there. So it was just them and me. Um, anyway, point being, lots of tension. And I remember, right? I tried to come out to my mom in high school. I tried to tell her, like, hey, I'm not straight. It didn't go well. Like, it didn't go badly. But like my attempt to come out was more like, I wonder, can I just have a conversation about same-sex relationships, same-sex marriage? Because again, this was 2004 to 2008 time period. So like same-sex marriage and all of that was like very prominent at the time. And I was watching it very, very intently. Um, side note, um, the first movie that I ever saw by myself in the theater was Brokeback Mountain. Such a good movie. But I wanted to see it very badly. And I'm like, I remember sneaking in, like, terrified that somebody might see me and then be like, oh, Emily's watching a gay film. Oh my God, she must be gay, right? Like, that was a concern at the time. I was very, very self-conscious and like aware of what people might think about me. And then look at me now, I'm like, I don't give a fuck what you think. Um, that that shift, that like complete 180, like damn, so fun. Anyway, um, I remember I tried to like start a conversation with her, right? Like, and I was broaching it from the perspective of like, if I didn't get married, would you still love me? If I ended up like not getting married and then like I don't want to be lonely at the end of my life, like if I just have a companion and that companion happens to be a woman, would you still love me? Right? Like I started dropping these hints and I'm sure that she got them. But our extended family is largely conservative, very MAGA, um, which I always think is hilarious in like a not funny way because my uncle is gay. Um, his partner has lived with him for God, I don't even know how long. And like for most of that time, it was like, oh, they're just roommates. I'm like, no, No, sweetheart, they're not. Like, they are partners, they are lovers, like, and that's perfectly fine. And then my cousin, she's gay. Her wife is a woman, obviously, right? They have kids. And I just sit here sometimes and I'm like, I don't understand. And I have distanced myself from that side of the family, right? Like, I'll go into that in more detail at another time. But I always thought it was fascinating that, like, you have people in your family who you know are queer, and yet you openly support not only a party, but specifically a pedophile, let's call him what he is, who is blatantly homophobic, racist. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense, which is one of the reasons why I have distanced myself from my family and I have detached from them. Because it goes back to, like, why I didn't get confirmed. Like, why would I stay somewhere and surround myself with people who say that they love me, but I'm like, sweetheart, everything about you says otherwise. Like, anyway, there's that. But then, right? So, like, that was when I first tried to come out to my mom, and that, like, I'm sure that like, she probably got the picture, but we never actually talked about it. And from that point on, like, I didn't start dating. I didn't have my first date until I was 22 or 23. I honestly don't remember. It was after I moved to Florida, though. So 2013 would have been it. Those are stories for another time. Like, when I finally got into the dating pool, like, oh my God, the stories. But anyway, um, from then on, like, I dated men. I didn't go out with my first woman until I think it was 2021, maybe. Um, and part of me is like, girl, are you gonna say this? Yes, I am. She was married. Her husband knew. She was exploring her sexuality. I met him. Um, so yeah, that was interesting. But when I told my mom, it was funny. I sent her a text. I let her know I went on a date. She's like, "Ooh, tell me about him." And my response was, "Well, she is named blank, right?" I did not tell her that she was a married woman. Um, and part of me, right, is like, "Oh my God, Emily, why are you saying this?" But also, like, full transparency, right? Like, if people are all on the same page with things, open communication, right? If I had gone out with her and her husband did not know, I would not have gone out with her, like, at all. But it's like she was testing things out, I was testing things out. Like, it is what it is, right? Experiment with consent. That's the point. And safely, like, use protection. Anyway, um, when I told my mom that, like, I went out with a girl, I think her response was, "Oh." Like, it was just, okay. So it's like, that was it. That was the conversation. And she made a comment somewhere in the future, like, from that point, that she sees me ending up with a man. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I see myself ending up with anybody. So whatever. But either way, like, we don't talk about it. But for the sake of this live, right? And for anybody who is not already aware, yes, I am queer. That's how I label myself. Like, there's no real specifics if I had to really actually think about it. Demisexual, sapiosexual for like 100% sure. You need to be intelligent. Like intelligence turns me on. Like, ooh, Lord. Stupid people are just no. Like, you might be the most attractive person on the face of the earth. But if there is like nothing happening up there, like, no, it's not gonna happen. But anyway, steer it back and then wrap it up, right? This yearbook. Somebody wrote, this was the year that I refused to get confirmed, right? They wrote, Emily, you missed tons of fun in CCD/confirmation. Too bad. Like, that's how I read it. Like, too bad, so sad. You missed fun being indoctrinated into a system that hates women and hates, like, anybody that doesn't fit into a fucking box. Too bad. Yeah, too bad. I don't mind missing out on that experience. And what's interesting to me as well, right, is like the person who wrote that, one, would be fascinating to see if they end up watching this and connecting the dots and realizing that I'm talking about them, but also they probably don't remember writing that, right? But what I think is interesting, right? Sexuality, particularly in women, is a lot more fluid than I think people realize from my experience, right? And from the people that I have talked to and engaged with and all that jazz. She sometimes watches my stories, and there has been moments, right, where it's like she has interacted with them and interacted with me, and I'm like, baby girl, are you in the closet? Maybe you should ask your husband if you can play. But then also part of me is like, are we asking husbands for permission? Does your husband control your body? Like, lots of thoughts there. Especially because this individual still lives where we grew up. And I've mentioned it before, like no judgment to people that don't leave their hometown. But also, I'm like, if you don't leave your bubble, you're just stuck there, living in the conditioning and the just everything from that area. And if you do your research on Mankato, Minnesota, there are some skeletons in that closet. I won't go into that right now. But like, again, people need to, for lack of a better phrase or word, right? Come out. Come out and play, right? I'm just saying. Anyway, I think I've been talking for, again, almost 2 hours. So apparently, my lives on the revolution are gonna be long. It's basically like a movie, right? So, I don't know, part of me is like, stay for the end credits, right? Maybe there will be an extra scene. But no, once I sign off, I sign off. And on that note, oh no, well, I mean, part of me is like, Emily, tie this back into the class that you're going to be teaching in 2.5 weeks, right? The Venus sequence, which, at least to me, right, has helped me navigate my shadows my wounding, my trauma from childhood. You can look into it on your own, obviously. You don't need me. But if you're interested, Valentine's Day, I'm leading a class. It's going to be more structured than this, don't worry, but it is going to be 2 hours. So it's going to be similar, just more structured. I'm going to be hitting specific points, specific spheres, right? And it's only $2.14 to join. So I will, whenever I post this replay, have a link to register for that. Like I said, it's $2.14 to join. It is donation based. So you are welcome to donate more. And just on that note, all donations go towards the sanctuary and a cat cafe that is currently in development. So stay tuned for more on that. And on that note, I'm signing off. I hope that you have an amazing evening. If you're watching this now, or if you're watching the replay and it's evening, if it's not, hope you have a great morning, a wonderful afternoon, and all that jazz. With love, Kai. Just kidding. You know who I am.